Hey everyone, welcome back to another 31-minute podcast. Here I am with Suzy Hollis. I call you Suzy.
You can call me Suzy.
Yes, is that right?
Beautiful.
I'm really keen for this one today. I think you're a very intriguing lady. So you were just...
Yeah, I've been paying my supporters a lot of money to kind of keep that critique out there.
Before we got started, you were just telling me about your race bike you just bought.
Yeah. I've been riding bikes since I was 16.
Yeah, and we're talking about motorbikes.
Motorbikes, yeah. So they've been a love of my life. And when my sons were born, my husband, who wasn't riding at the time, basically said to me, can you do me a favour? Can you get off the bikes until they're old enough to make their lunch? So we kind of had this agreement that when my youngest one turned 12, I would, get off my bikes, and when you turn 12, I would go back. And I think my husband was just kind of hoping that I would forget all about it. But the day my son turned 12, I went out and got a new 848 Ducati. So,
really?
Yeah.
I just noticed that you have a beautiful house here. And
thank you.
There's a bike in the foyer.
There is a bike in the foyer. So that's my 959, so the Duke 959, which I absolutely adore, but she's a serious handful. But I've just bought the brand new, I'm the first woman apparently to own the Beamer S1000RR, which is the fastest production bike out there. So
it doesn't mean a lot to me. It's like
doesn't mean a lot. It means a lot.
It just sounds fast.
It's deadly. Yeah.
All right, let's get to know more about you.
Okay.
So you talk about igniting people's purpose.
Yeah.
I'm really interested in this. Mm-hmm. How do people lose the spark?
I think people lose the spark in their life when they actually stop living in their own integrity.
Yeah. Okay.
I think certainly from my experience, I had a traditional kind of success route.
Yeah.
So, so for me, I was a kind of a heavy duty corporate player for quite a long time.
I think you're underplaying this. I know all about your past. I think you're very underplaying this. Oh. Yeah, you were very successful, and you are very successful, but in another field. Yeah. So corporate world.
So corporate world. I worked for global airlines for many, many years, and I reached a stage where to me I was really kind of losing my spark. And it came down to the point where, I'd always been so driven corporately in terms of my success and wanting to be the youngest person that, had the most senior position, and I was seriously career focused. And bit by bit, I started getting kind of little warning messages that, was this really working for me?
Tell me what that felt like. What was that? Because I think there's a lot of people today that running around doing things caught in that wheel of life. So when you say little things... Was it
little nudges,
gut feels?
Little nudges where, where you'd be doing something and all of a sudden things wouldn't things wouldn't feel quite right. Or you'd start to feel that your values were being challenged just a little.
Energy? Like, was your energy...
Absolutely.
Like, you get out of bed
really
and not bouncing into work as much, or...
No, and I think that's actually a really telling sign is, when you're kind of finding yourself that you are having to create that energy, in order to be able to fulfill that role. And I guess, for probably about 2 or 3 years, I knew that I wasn't happy, but I was too frightened to ask myself that question because, I knew if the answer was, are you happy? And the answer is no, I'd have to do something. And I didn't want to change the status quo at all.
So here's a question for you. You were up in the corporate world. What were you earning back then?
So back then, it's a long time ago because...
it would have been like in today's
20
money.
20 years ago, so close to $1 million a year.
Okay, $1 million a year.
Yeah.
The reason I ask this is you develop a lifestyle.
Yep.
And your inner self's going, hey, this is not for me, or this is getting not for me. How do you make that, like, obviously you've got to chop that off, and you've worked your way all these years to this point. Yeah. So tell me how that process went.
It was horrifically difficult, which is probably why it took me over 2 years to be able to do it, because I knew in my heart that I wasn't living my values in that role. And it wasn't the organisation that I was working for, which was a global airline. It wasn't their fault. It was I'd reached that stage in my life where I started to think, is this all it is? Is this all that I have? So, I guess if you kind of looked at what we would class as the traditional measures of success, so, I had the big job, the big house, lots of toys, beautiful family, was living a serious life of adrenaline.
Still got a beautiful house.
And, so I kind of had all those things around me, but I knew deep down inside, that I wasn't happy.
So did you just get out of bed one day and went, that's enough?
I didn't do it then, but I did do that later.
Right.
So then at the time of corporate, I basically decided that I was a shock and a realization to me one day when I realized that my values were more important than the next promotion. And I didn't see that coming. I'd always been so career driven, and I suddenly realized, I'm working for a big organization. I can't impact culture. I can't make a difference to these people. I can't make a difference to me and the life that I want to live. So that was a really tough decision, because at the time I was the major breadwinner, and potentially for me to step out of that and to do something myself and to go into, kind of the wide world of entrepreneurship, which is what I decided to do, put so much at risk. My boys were really little. They were 3 and 5. We'd had, big plans of, building this house, which we were living in a dump that was on this site.
We are in one of the most expensive suburbs in Sydney. So, yeah, I get it. And so how did you I'm just trying to I think all of us can relate to this a little bit, especially in that corporate world. Was the money just not compelling enough anymore? Was your...
Absolutely right. I mean, you reach a point where the money isn't everything. I mean, I had everything, and if there was an outsider looking at my life, they would have, seen that I ticked all the boxes of what traditional success had meant. But I wasn't happy within myself. And so that's when you actually reach that tipping point where you say, you know what, enough. There is not enough here for me to get up every morning and say, you know what, I'm living my values, I'm being true to myself.
So how did life look after that? So did you just go in and quit one day?
Yeah, well, pretty much. So it was a bit of a protracted process. My company that I was working for decided that I was against contract by trying to leave. So that got a bit nasty for a few weeks.
Sounds like a bike club. It's like you can't get out once you're in.
Once you're in, you're stuck. So yeah, that was really tough. But for me, I just kind of worked through the process, and with the business partner, we started our own company.
Was there a financial dip in your life?
Oh, it was horrific. We didn't earn any money for 2 years. And so I remember saying to my husband at the time when I'd made the decision that I wanted to leave corporate and all the security that gave me, I mean, I could still be there earning bucket load of money.
Yeah, running the place.
And not be happy.
Yeah.
So
do you look back now with any regrets of leaving corporate?
Oh God, no. No, not at all. Because I think my life has just been exponentially exploded by taking that risk.
Wow.
By having courage in myself, and also having my family having courage in me. I said to my husband, look, this could get really ugly. I have to put everything on the line here. If this goes belly up, we'll lose everything.
Are you still together?
Yeah. We see the flowers?
Yeah.
You know what that is? 34-year anniversary.
Oh, really?
Yesterday.
I thought they were from broccoli.
Yeah. He thought about it. I said to him, broccoli, no, it's no need. Please don't bring flowers. That's not necessary.
So you're going strong and...
Yeah. So, and he said to me, you know what? If we have to eat mince for the rest of our lives, and it means that you can follow your passion, just do it.
Wow.
So we did, and for 2 years we made no money. It was incredibly hard. I mean, you know what it's like to start a business, and you put it all on the table, and you risk yourself, and you risk the livelihood of those that you love, and everything. And bit by bit, it starts to grow, and all of a sudden you gather momentum, and then you're away. So,
what business is it? What business, did you start? I know what you do, but what business did you start?
Well, we started with, I had a business partner, and the two of us started a company called Travel Edge within a few years, and initially corporate travel, but then it became 5 separate companies. We had it for 20 years. It became close to a $320 million business.
Wow.
Which we very fortuitously sold in October of last year.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's good.
But I'd actually stepped out of the business about 3 years before because I decided that I want to do some other things. So although I still owned it, I put a CEO in who ran the business, and then I went off kind of adventuring for the last 3 years.
Yeah, right.
So, yeah.
So that growth in the business, what did you attribute that to? Was it... Because obviously it was just you and the business partner, and then was it your connections and then at Drive and all that sort of stuff. But how did you get from nothing to a $320 million business?
Well, we had kind of 3 very kind of core business philosophies when we went into it. And firstly, I think we wanted to create a business for us. we both come from, my business partner was also with me in at the airline that I was working with, that shall remain nameless. But we'd both come a very, very tough corporate environment, a tough corporate culture, and, as I said, an environment where we didn't feel like we could make a difference. So we really wanted to create a business that where culture was first and foremost. Where people enjoyed coming to work. One of my core values is growth and learning. So we wanted to build an environment where people could come and learn and be their best, professionally and personally. So culture was huge. We were really conscious of the fact that we also needed to, to kind of build into the business. So we never wanted to be caught out by the business. And that's a tough and scary thing.
How do you mean? So explain that.
So when your business is growing, you kind of have two choices. You can either wait till that growth comes and you can then hemorrhage and try and put systems and processes and formats and structures around that, or you can take the risky option, which is, see that growth, or hope that growth is going to happen, put the infrastructures and framework in, and then grow into that business.
Yeah, which obviously was what you did.
Yeah, so that's very much what we did. And, and we also knew that we just had to start before we were ready. There was, it was never going to be perfect. And, if we'd waited for everything to be perfect, we would still have a $20 million business.
How many staff did you end up with?
About 220.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah.
So now, I could talk about that all day, the business side of it, but you're a very healthy looking person.
Thank you.
And if fitness, health,
Critical. Yeah, critical to me. So I think...
How do you, sorry to jump in, but how do you... So obviously you've stayed like this through your career. It's not like last week you started training and ended up like this.
Yeah.
How did you fit all that in? How did you fit yourself in? Mum, business owner, growth. Tell me about it.
Really tough lessons. I think, certainly when I was in corporate and then when we had our business, there was, my kind of natural tendency is to be a warrior. And as a warrior, kind of one of my two criteria, control and perfection. So, and they were two criteria which had a significant impact on me eventually, because I had to be perfect at everything. I kind of figured if I looked perfect, worked perfect, acted perfect, then no one could actually question, what I was doing. So, so I kind of spent a lot of my career.
It's like part of your brand?
Yeah, and it was, and that was but it was also my shield. If I could be that person, then no one could kind of infiltrate me and no one could see any weaknesses, and I would never allow myself to be vulnerable, would never ask for help, which served me for many years. But then you also reach a point where, things started, basically, we talk about nudges. I think the universe starts to give you nudges, and, I know you've had some, and I think you start getting nudges and you ignore them until they get bigger and bigger and bigger. And in the end, you kind of go, you know what? I can't live like this anymore. I've got to address things. So, I've always been very focused on my physical health. So, do triathlons, run marathons, do a lot of adrenaline stuff. So, and it's there's, it's like this morning, you kind of wake up, I get up at 4:30 every morning, wake up at 4:30, it's pissing down with rain, and it's just like, put your shoes on.
You went today as well?
Yeah.
Wow.
You just go. So that discipline is always there. So I have a really kind of set routine in the morning. So it's up at 4:30, run for an hour, or, depending on what my training is for running. So run for, kind of an average an hour, come back, meditate for 45 minutes, then I write. So I've got a
What do you write? Journaling?
Yeah. So very much kind of journaling. So it tends to be free flow. So it tends to be, if I've had an issue or something that's bothering me, it's just to truly work it out in my head, work it out on paper. And I love pen to paper. It's just something really special about seeing that ink.
Yeah, I agree.
Kind of come to life.
I agree. I just read a book recently and I wrote it all by hand, and people were like, why didn't you type it?
Oh,
and I'm
I
like,
know.
I don't know, it gets lost in there.
You know what it does? It really does. There's something really special about, the magic of actually watching these words just kind of appear.
Yeah.
And for me, I use that as it solves just about anything. And often when I go back and I look at my journals and things that were worrying me, months ago, I suddenly look at it and I go, wow, you know what? You worked through that. You sorted it.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So now, like, you obviously don't need money and you're just enjoying life and you're healthy. You got all of these things going on.
Yeah.
So what drives you? Why do you get out of bed every day? I know you want to go for your run, but like, what's the bigger thing for you going on now?
Well, I guess it's really interesting, and I kind of I've started looking at my life in thirds. So I look at kind of the first 30 years of my life was about me. You know, it's about being who I needed to be. It was about my growth, my learning, my experiences. The second 30 years of my life was kind of about my sons, who are now 25 and 23, and my beautiful niece who lives with us, and she's upstairs right now. And so it's about my kids and building the business and creating a secure environment for all of us, financially and and in all aspects. And I'm 60 now, so I kind of go...
You're 60?
Yeah.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah. So for me, I'm kind of saying, okay, well, the next 30 years is about giving back.
Do you eat meat?
No, vegan.
I thought that.
Plant-based.
Yeah,
But I have, I was like vegetarian for about 30 years, and I've been plant-based for about 12.
Really?
Yeah.
I want to keep hearing what you were saying before, but I went plant-based.
Yeah,
and
I heard.
I don't know. I just couldn't find it felt like couldn't eat anywhere properly and like...
Oh, no, see that, the thing is, when I went plant-based, you really struggled.
Yeah.
But now there's, you go to most restaurants and there's plant-based options.
But they're not that nice.
They are.
They're like...
Seriously,
Matt. Sometimes you need a chicken kebab.
No, you don't. You never need a chicken kebab.
I felt like I was losing too much weight or something. I don't know. Maybe I need to get coaching from you around it.
Yeah, but you've seen, I know that you've watched lots of the movies and stuff like that. You look at people like Rich Roll. Have you ever kind of come across Rich Roll?
No.
Oh my God. Okay. You need to listen to his podcast, Rich Roll, and you need to read his book, Finding Ultra.
Right.
Okay,
so is there no place for meat?
For me, no.
Yeah, right.
No, none at all.
Not in fish?
No.
Wow.
Well, no, I scuba dive, and so to be honest, fish to me are kind of like our pets.
Is there anything you don't do? Did you build this house yourself?
Pretty close.
Wouldn't surprise me. I'm sorry, we were talking about before the meat.
So to me, I guess, I kind of figure that'll take me 30 years. I kind of look at what gets me out of bed now is serving other people. Yeah. So, and I figure that'll take me till I'm 90, and then I'll renegotiate. So
how much do you work a general day now?
Well, I coach clients. But most of my clients are in North America because I kind of live between here and Canada. I have my oldest son is a Canadian resident, so he's permanently based over there, and we have a place there. So I ski a lot. We're backwards and forwards there.
Are you in the Olympics?
I wish the old ladies Olympics. But for me, so I coach clients, I public speak. I'm an author, so people often kind of come to me about the book.
When you speak, what do you speak about?
My favourite topic is heart success. Head success is brilliant, but it's heart success that gives you joy. And what that means is, so for me, head success is all the traditional success. But heart success, and that gives you enjoyment and it gives you pleasure. Like literally, I bought that motorbike on Wednesday. I'm still in love with that motorbike. But I know in kind of 6 months' time, it won't feel like it does right now.
Yeah.
So they give you enjoyment, but they don't give you joy. So for me, the real, it's about heart success. So heart success is, for example, it's living an authentic life. Being really clear, I'm really clear on my values. I get up every morning and I look at my values and I make sure that I'm doing at least something to contribute to most of them every day.
So if there's a person listening to this right now, and they're feeling like flat, like just life, and maybe they don't have that heart thing yet, how do they find it? Like if they're just sort of a bit disconnected from life and... how do they... Because you had your impulse to go start the company. Yeah. And, credit to you for going off and putting it all on the line. Yeah. How do they find... Do they need to try other things? Are they... okay, let's use this one. Right? Okay. It's my...
Give me an example.
This is one... I've been divorced twice.
Yeah.
And I reckon that many people that I've spoken to over time or seen, they're just not happy in their marriages. Yeah. But they don't do anything about it. Yeah. What do they do?
But most of those people then are unhappy in their lives and they're not doing anything about it.
Where does... It's like an example of one part of their life, but how do they solve it?
But I think, if you're looking at something like a marriage, then the first thing is it's basically, it's looking at who are you in that relationship. And to be honest, it kind of works the same in life. You know, when you kind of look at a relationship or a marriage or where you are in life, it's the first question that I ask myself or my clients is, are you showing up as who you want to be in that relationship or in that marriage or in that life? Because if you are not being the person that you are supposed to be or that you truly want to be, then you've got no hope in that relationship. And you've got no hope in life, you know.
Is that like, you mean living to other people's expectations? Like,
yeah, it's living to other people's expectations.
So your husband must be incredibly supportive.
He's amazing. He doesn't like a lot of the things that I do. Like when I decided to step away from my company, I woke up one morning at 2:00 in the morning. I said, I have to go ride. And he went, right now it's 2:00 in the morning. I went, no, I need to buy a bike and I need to go around the US by myself for at least 3 months.
Oh, wow.
And which I did, and and instantly his instant reaction. Of course, it was only 2 in the morning, but he said that's not going to happen. And I let that one slide.
Did it happen?
Of course it did. But the thing was, he didn't like it. He was uncomfortable with it. He and my boys were they're not, they know I can ride.
Yeah.
But they were very concerned about, safety and accidents and being, I did 23,000 K. So, the potential for disaster on a super bike, not a touring bike, a really, on a
fast
rocket.
one. Yeah.
And so they didn't like it. They weren't happy with it. They were uncomfortable with it. But they knew it was really important to me. So although they didn't like it, they were like, okay, go do what you need to do. So that enables me, in life. Having that level of support enables me to do the things that I need to do, because I know that they've always, my sons, my niece, and my husband always have my back. They mightn't like it,
but they get you.
Yeah.
So if someone's in a relationship and it could be a work relationship or it could be personal, and they just feel like they're dying inside because they're, I don't know, not supported or not. What do they do about it?
They have to start making some changes, and they don't need to be huge.
Okay.
But they have to, you can't stay in that perpetual state forever, or nothing's ever going to change. Things have to change. So, so again, it depends on. Do
you think that's why people get sick?
Yeah. Oh, without a doubt. I truly believe that, kind of sickness is, there's a correlation to our body, and that's either an emotional problem, a physical problem, or a mental problem that somewhere, somehow, we've buried. I mean, I love this saying. It's, any emotion buried is buried alive.
Yeah, true.
So, you bury an emotion. So you bury, broccoli, we were talking about fear, you bury fear.
Yeah. Or
you bury anger, or you bury resentment or frustration. You bury that and you don't deal with it. Sooner or later, that will come out somewhere, somehow. And generally, it's a form of illness, from your body's perspective, that you are not freeing that emotion up. So, so when I actually have clients, or, even on the road, so when I'm on the road all the time, people say to me, wow, this is amazing, a girl on a motorbike, just incredible, so inspiring. But my answer to that is always, it's like, inspiration is great, but inspiration without action is nothing.
True.
So if you don't take anything from this,
then
the inspiration is just gone in one ear and out the other. It's what you choose to do with it. And, we all live a life of choice. So we can choose to stay in that situation. We can choose to be in an unhappy marriage. We can choose to be in a job that takes our soul, or we can make changes. And that doesn't mean it's not scary. It's terrifying.
Well, that 2 years of when you started your business, that would have been horrendous in a way.
It was. Yeah.
I've got a few last questions for you, because obviously 31-minute podcast, but I want to go for 3 hours. But
far away.
Any regrets?
Oh, God, no.
Anything you would have done differently?
No, none.
Nothing?
Nothing.
No.
And, I think the thing is, it's, apart from anything else, the mistakes that you made, and I've made, a shitload of mistakes.
Yeah.
In life and in business, but they, they really do, they do create who you are, because, you make a mistake, you can either, sink into the black hole of that, or you can learn from it and you make sure you never do it again. But that changes who you are. A mistake fundamentally changes who you are. And, they are really the opportunities that we have to grow.
I love that.
So,
I've made some big mistakes.
Yeah, well, you know what? And we all have. I love that.
Best moment? Apart from your kids being born, all that. What's the best moment in your life?
Wow. The most recent best moment was I went to Nepal last year I've just had this, I've had a calling to go to Nepal. So I went to Nepal last year to kind of look at a couple of projects to see how I could help.
Yeah.
You know, very fortunate, sold my business, everybody set up, and I wanted to be able to help. And so I found a couple of projects where I can help rebuild schools and things like that, and that's great, and we're doing that. And then in between these projects, I had a 9-day trek to Annapurna Base Camp, just me and a guide.
Which is
so it's
like a mountain?
So it's about 4,200 metre trek. And we came past this tiny little school, and 30 kids, and 11 of them are orphans in this school. Their parents had either been killed in the earthquake in 2015, or they'd been abandoned, or they were homeless. And they were all living in a room about the size of this table, not much bigger.
Oh, wow.
So, and the government pays for their schooling but doesn't pay for their food. So they're dependent on trekkers coming past for donations. So with my team, when we got back to Kathmandu, I couldn't go back with them because I had to come back to Australia. But we organised 3 months worth of food. They had no clothes and the snow was coming in, so we bought clothes and shoes. And
was that the best day of their life, you coming past?
Oh, probably for them. But so I couldn't go, and the best day of my life recently was getting the photos back and just seeing these little kids with shoes and jackets and clothes, and
so good.
It's as good as gets.
So good.
Yeah.
Awesome. That's a whole nother podcast. But advice for young women getting into the world, not just women, but you're obviously a very successful woman in would have been a fairly male-dominated field before.
Yeah.
Well, what about just young women leaving school or just getting started in life or trying to find their way? What's the best bit of advice you'd give to them?
Stay within your integrity. I didn't.
Didn't you?
I didn't when I was in corporate. I was in, as you said, a really, really chauvinistic boys club, tough male, and I was one of the most senior women in that organisation. And one of my favourite moments was when I was the first woman promoted to a very big job, and one of the senior executives said, they didn't question my capability or my qualifications. They basically said, you'll never cut it because you're not a bloke.
Wow.
And
where are those person now? Where's that person now?
We don't want to talk about it. But so that caused me, and I had 2 very young boys at the time, and so I felt that I had to be a man. So I didn't talk about my kids. There were no photos. And I let values slide because I felt that that's what I had to do to really be successful in a man's world and to not be judged. And to be judged fairly and equally, not as a woman, let alone a mother. And I know for sure I was a better leader because I was a mother, not in spite of it, because,
for sure,
multitasking, that word was invented for working mothers. So for young women coming into their own in careers, stay in your integrity. It is not necessary to be anything but yourself, and it serves no purpose, and it just eats your soul away. So have the courage to stay in your integrity and the trust that you have the skills, the knowledge, and the capability to do anything that comes your way.
Last question while I've got you. If someone's got a pulse inside of them, saying, go do this, go do this, go do this, and then they're scared.
Yeah.
Do they do it slowly or do they just jump?
I've done both.
Okay.
I've done it slowly, where it took me 2 years to leave corporate and step into my own business. And when I decided that I needed to step out of my own business, I quit that day.
Yeah, wow.
So I've done both. So, so I think it depends on the circumstances. And but I think what I would say is just surrender to the opportunity, because if you're trying to be too prescriptive, you have no idea the opportunities that potentially could come your way, and you will limit them. So, so if it takes you a little bit of time to work out what those opportunities are, so be it. If you think you know what you're doing, jump straight away.
So good. How do people book you for speaking and coaching and things?
Just on my website.
On your website?
So, SuzyHollis.com.
SuzyHollis.com.
Yeah.
Awesome interview. Thanks.
Thank you. Such a pleasure.
Suzy Hollis. Awesome. Thanks.